In this fabulously beautiful Presidio National Park at the headlands of the Golden Gate, and running like a scar through it is this, this incredibly ugly highway, which was built in 1936 at the same time as the Golden Gate Bridge. At that time, the Presidio was an army post, and the army didn't want civilians in their turf, so the road was built high, elevated. It's obsolete now.
We need access. We can't have that kind of traffic circling through San Francisco neighborhoods trying to get into the Presidio through the old gates. What you have is a 70-year-old facility that is inadequate for today's transportation needs, but in addition to that, you have the problem that it wasn't designed to seismic standards.
The rating for the high viaduct is a lower rating than the Minneapolis bridge that collapsed. It was fabricated on the East Coast. It sent all the way across the United States, and then it sat for quite a while before it was used, so it became rusty before it was installed.
A state highway through a federal national park connecting an independently managed bridge to city streets. This is a prescription for complication.
It became very clear that unless there was one catalyst organization that took it on as a challenge, it wasn't going to happen. And so that's what we did. We established a focus of analysis and ultimately an opportunity for people to advocate for something that was better than what we had there today. And we couldn't have done otherwise because the project has a structural rating of 2 out of 100.
You can see the rusting reinforcing in the concrete when you look at the edges of it now. The deck has steel reinforcing in it that's totally corroded and has lost 2/3 of its strength.
This was accelerated in 1989 when the Loma Prieta earthquake hit. Caltrans came in and strengthened these beams, strengthened these connections, but really without replacing it, you can't bring it up to current seismic standards. To fix this road will cost more than to replace it. So for the past 18 years, we have been working on a design to replace the roadway, but to do it in a way that makes it really appropriate to be in a national park and not in an army post.
I would say that is one of the more ugly structures I know about. It is a barrier between this marsh and the Presidio and the Palace of Fine Arts. One cannot walk there, ride a bike there, take a stroller there. This area has not always been this attractive. This area now is a place where hundreds of people come to promenade on Sundays or weekends. A few weekends ago, I brought my daughter, my grandson, the grand dog, went over to the Marine Center, had picnic lunch on one of these berms watching the birds. It's just been memorable to use this whenever we come here. What will it look like when, let's say, the design and development have been completed and we're about to begin construction? We are not so sure we want an 8-lane highway going through this part of town. It is one of the more beautiful areas in a natural seaport area on the planet.
The road is going to be so different. It's really a parkway, and it's a parkway through the national park. Painter's design makes the road, as much as possible, disappear to people who are visiting the national park. And where it is visible, it has to be beautiful, landscaped, elegant.
The road, rather than being way up in the air, is about 20 feet lower than it is today. Normally in midday, you're going through in about 2 minutes. Looking back from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Presidio, you're going to be much more aware of parkland and much less aware of road. The high viaduct will parallel the existing one, but it's on a gentle curve and it's a little bit to the south, so it can be built while the existing one remains in operation. And it's 2 bridges there with open space in between them. Your views are constantly changing. You're just not as conscious of the traffic coming in the opposite direction, so you'll notice the views a lot more. The lanes, of course, are about a foot wider than they are today. There'll be shoulders, so if your car becomes disabled, you can pull off to the edge. The next area, the tunnel portal, will have a view centered on the Palace of Fine Arts. And as you come out, you'll be able to see Alcatraz Island and the bay and Crissy Field. Then you get to the main post area. You go into another tunnel that's about 1,000 feet long. And when you come into one, you can see out the other end. It's almost like you feel like you're driving through a building rather than driving through a tunnel. Noise from the roadway will be totally sheltered, and the traffic will be out of view.
When you come out of the last short tunnel, and as you look forward, what you see is the golden dome of the Palace of Fine Arts, and behind that, the tip of the Transamerica Pyramid. Now, what more emblematic way to come into San Francisco than through that gateway?
It's just going to be amazing, the transformation. I mean, now you read it as one section, the road is a major barrier, and then a wonderful strip along the water. All those things are going to mesh together.
Right now, the road really cuts off this area from public access. And with the new road, we're going to be able to open up the opportunity in a whole different way. This bunker that we see now is really totally out of access to the general public. We're really excited about being able to completely represent this site. The idea here would be, as we said, restoring the battery itself, but then to be able to open up these magnificent views. So what we want to do is to add to this wonderful amenity, to be able to restore this coastal bluff area, to respect its military history, to re-landscape it, to provide improved trail access through here. And the Doyle Drive project is allowing us to do that important reconnection. So this area isn't sort of splintered off from the rest of the Presidio. We can see here how dramatic of a change it will be when Doyle Drive is depressed in this section and you have a cover that connects the cemetery to this site. It's an immensely important project on a statewide and national basis, but you could rush a project through and just replace in kind, or you could put the thought that's gone into this project about creating something of real lasting public benefit.
We really want everybody to feel like it's a win situation, whether you're a neighbor that lives nearby, whether you're a commuter or a user of the park, that everyone will experience a much better situation than they currently have.
The human interest to me has been how people could work out so many challenging differences to come to a design that we believe will give us a jewel, landmark of a place.
I'm sure it will have a defining effect, just like the Embarcadero did. And mind you, when the Embarcadero freeway came down, there were some people who were concerned about that, who wanted the freeway rebuilt. Nobody would think of that today. When you look at the magnificent growth and transformation that happened on the Embarcadero, the same thing will happen with Doyle. It will be a cherished part of the city and a worthy addition to what's already there.
It will be a safe and spectacularly beautiful entrance to a spectacularly beautiful city. It will be the entry from the Golden Gate that San Francisco deserves.